shock. Nonprofits in Nova Scotia report a big spike in demand for help with power bills.
From the ashes, trees burned in last year's wildfires find new life at a lumber yard.
And a Cape Breton community comes together to honor 2 police officers who lost their lives to cancer.
Southerly winds increasing tonight with periods of rain rolling in throughout the day on Tuesday. Even the risk of a rumble of thunder. Your full forecast is coming up.
Good evening. As the cost of living continues to push people to their limits, many Nova Scotians are struggling to pay their power bills. Community organizations say the demand for help with power bills is surging. And people's debt with Nova Scotia Power is higher than ever. These groups say they're giving out more money just to help keep people's lights on. Our Nicholas Sagan explains.
We know power rates have gone up, but it's hitting some people harder than others. Nonprofits across the province say they're seeing more people who need help with power bills and higher arrears than in years past. With the cost of food, rent, and gas rising, they're worried about how people will keep up.
We do have people that live in their homes without power for months because their bill is so high and they can't afford to get it reconnected.
Leaf says her organization is using diversion funding that's supposed to help people get ahead, just to keep their heads above water. Other nonprofits are echoing this, with their own data painting a bleak picture. According to the South Shore Open Doors Association, its clients have more than double the power arrears compared to the same time last year. And in Halifax, it's the same story. ADSUM for Women and Children has already provided more funding towards power bills this year than all of 2023. And Shabukto Connections is providing almost double last year's monthly average. But when I asked Nova Scotia Power, they say disconnections aren't rising. 2023 was just over the average of 3,000 per year. They don't disconnect power over the winter, but a spokesperson says in the first 2 weeks of May, 137 households were disconnected, and that's normal. They say the average amount of arrears is $600, which is similar to past years. But community organizations say this is because they're stepping in.
I mean, I definitely think it makes a difference, but it's not a long-term solution.
The province says it's helping nonprofits do this work, with almost $1 million a year in diversion funding, plus an extra $500,000 payment last fall. The government's rebate programs will also help hundreds of thousands of Nova Scotians this year. But the nonprofit workers helping clients pay their power bills every day are hoping for a plan to make those bills lower. Nicholas Sagan, CBC News, Halifax.
Nova Scotia RCMP are putting the finishing touches on the apology they'll be offering the province's Black communities this fall. The apology is for street checks, a controversial policy which has been banned in Nova Scotia because it was found to disproportionately target members of the African Nova Scotian community. Members of that community were 6 times more likely to be subject to a street check.
I was surprised and disappointed, and I felt some personal shame as well because from the period of about 2011 to 2013, I was the operations officer down in Halifax working with Halifax Regional Police, and so we were encouraging street checks and we were tracking street checks.
We'll hear more about the RCMP's planned apologies to the African Nova Scotian community for the use of street checks in our Newsmaker interview tonight just after 6:30.
It has been 1 year since a wildfire swept through parts of Upper Tantallon and Hammonds Plains, destroying more than 150 homes. The fast-moving fire also wiped out thousands of trees in the suburban area. Some of those have now been removed, but they just may return one day in a different form. Allie Thompson brings us that story.
I was happy to be able to clear those trees along the Hammonds Plains Road where people relive that trauma every single time they go to and from their community.
I think the good news for this is that these trees are being harvested, they are being processed, and they are having a second life in someone's home.
I understand what they're going through, but as a biologist and an ecologist, I also see the incredible pace of forest renewal that ensues after a fire.
It's been a year since a wildfire swept through parts of Upper Tantallon and Hammonds Plains, destroying 151 homes in its path. But there's a less talked about casualty of the fast-moving fire: thousands of trees. Many of those have now been cleared. For some, it's been cathartic, but others say they should have been left alone. This is part of life at Forest Kids Early Learning in Hammonds Plains. But it wasn't possible until recently. The trail to their outdoor classroom has been littered with burnt trees, blown over by high winds.
Come here, you guys.
Having many of those trees cleared away means little feet can march down the path once again.
Well, you caught us at a good time because we're kind of getting used to it now. If you had asked me a couple of months ago, I probably would be crying right now, but we are getting used to it.
Kaltwitz is one of many property owners working with a group of organizations to have burnt trees cleared from their land. Matt Willett of Wagner Forest has been spearheading the effort. He says many people didn't have insurance coverage for landscaping. Willett says the fire was intense enough to kill the softwood trees, but it only burnt the outer layer. The inside is still perfect for lumber.
We targeted the softwood. They're the trees that are going to blow over. They're the trees that are going to, that they're certainly not going to survive, and that have a really good end use. They're literally going back into the homes that are being rebuilt in the community.
That's right. The lumber from these trees will likely help rebuild homes here. That's because the mill they're headed to sells their products locally. It's not hard to pick out which trees at Freeman Lumber came from Upper Tantallon and Hammonds Plains. The 200-year-old mill in Greenfield has tweaked its scanning and sorting technology to figure out which has a scorched outer shell, given that's not normally an imperfection they deal with.
My boss, or we have two owners of the mill here, they said, we're landowners too, right? If our forest burnt on land that we own, we'd want someone to help us clean it up and get a new forest started. And that was really it. Majority of the forest that we have managed or worked on that was burnt was in Tantallon, not so much in Shelburne. But we did donate, 6 figures worth of lumber to the fire efforts in Shelburne to rebuild the houses down there. The mill is compensating people with bigger lots for their trees. Some with smaller lots are having trees cleared at no charge. But others didn't have enough softwood to take part in the project, or their lots were inaccessible for the machinery. Willett says there's another benefit to clearing these trees: removing fuel for any future fires that may come through.
If you can imagine that you had a garden that was growing and you didn't weed your garden and all the weeds were coming up, it was very, very thick. And if a fire went through that, there's a lot more fuel there and the fire would be a lot more intense.
It's a claim that's disputed by Donna Crosland, who has dedicated her life to forest ecology.
It's not aiding forest ecology. The forest recovers on its own.
Crosland says she would have left the trees be. She says forests renew at an incredible pace following a wildfire, the charred stumps providing perches for birds and habitat for other wildlife. She says once an area is burned, it's unlikely to reburn. That's because the fine fuels such as twigs, needles, and leaves have already been burned up.
We are a finger of land sticking out into the Atlantic Ocean. And so it's very moist here. It's often rather cool and damp, lots of rain. And so we have an amazing decay cycle. We need to retain our forest cover. And we need to not think that thinning the forest or salvaging the forest is aiding anything but the mill. Almost like telling a burn victim they need a vigorous massage. No, you need a period of healing and care, great care.
Whatever the best practices are, the priority for some residents is to be rid of the scorched trees so they can heal without the daily reminder of what happened.
So I think the good news for this is that these trees are being harvested, they are being processed, and they are having a second life in someone's home. And considering we lost 151 homes and over 200 structures, this really is a little bit of good news for us to know that this wood is now going into homes to be built.
This fall, tree planting will be happening across wildfire-impacted regions. A group of residents from the Upper Tantallon area have applied to Nova Scotia's Thriving Forest program, which uses federal and provincial funding to plant trees. And Freeman Lumber will be helping with tree planting efforts in both Shelburne and Halifax counties. For Kotwitz and the Forest Kids, they'll be happy to see new trees in the ground.
We don't feel too sad about having them gone. We felt sad to see them burnt, but now that the ones are gone, we know that there's room for regrowth, but to see the ones that are still there burnt, we're waiting patiently to see if there's going to be any green on them. Yeah, we look at them every time we come up because it looks to me like there's not going to be, but I'm pretty sure there will be.
In the meantime, they'll be hunting for signs of life on the black trees that remain. Allie Thompson, CBC News, Hammonds Plains.
We're just saying how quickly time goes. A year ago, and remember how dry it was back then.
It was so dry, and this year it's dry again.
Yeah, that's right. And looking at some of those numbers, so taking, the few weeks before the fires broke out, not just here, but of course in Shelburne, and yeah, looking at the map, you can see that it was really dry from May 7th to 27th, so a few weeks ahead of when those fires broke out, just 10 to 15 millimeters down and through the southwest and in the Shelburne area. In the Halifax area, just 15 to 30 millimeters of rain. A little more rain up in through Cape Breton. Now, compare that to the last couple of weeks. This is this year, May 7th to 27th. Eerily similar down in through the southwest. In the Halifax area, a bit more. We're closer to around 30 millimeters through a good portion of central Nova Scotia, ranging from 20 to 40, and in through Cape Breton again, they've had a little bit more. It's a lot drier in New Brunswick, but that leads us to the fire danger outlook. This is current for today, and you can see in the green is a moderate risk of fire, high in the yellow, and that includes down through Shelburne with some pockets in through the Halifax area, and again, less risk up towards Cape Breton. So all this to say, the rain that's coming in tonight, tomorrow, into tomorrow night is really needed. And we're looking at a widespread 5 to 10 millimeters across northern areas, 10 to 20 with some pockets to 30 millimeters along the Atlantic coastline, including Halifax, edging into the Shelburne area, Halifax, and into the eastern shore regions as well. So this again is a much needed rainfall. We'll see the winds increasing tonight and a couple of bands of the rain coming in throughout the day on Tuesday. Risk of a rumble of thunder in here as well, but it's a pretty slight risk, but we'll keep an eye on that. And then this all clears out. We'll get back into some sunshine, which we can enjoy after the rain, which we'll see some sun breaking in through Wednesday afternoon. We'll break it down with your full 7-day forecast coming up in a few minutes. Tom and Amy.
Sure, could use the rain. Okay, thanks so much, Ryan.
Thank you, Ryan.
Thank you.
And to get more people in West Hants ready for emergencies and natural disasters like the wildfires and the floods last year, the municipality is putting on education sessions on how to better prepare. The first of these sessions was held over the weekend. 4 people, including 3 children, were killed in the flooding in the West Hants area in July. Ground search and rescue, fire crews, and local emergency management officials were on hand to answer questions. Some residents who came out of the Southwest Hants Fire Hall say with extreme weather events becoming more common, they want to be prepared.
I'm very concerned about emergency preparedness, planning, preparation. Like, what do we do if something goes wrong? I live in a community that has one road in, one road out, so it's a big concern for us.
The first 20 families who came to the fire hall received a basic 72-hour emergency preparedness kit. West Hants will host another educational session in Somerville in September.
The maintenance of a private road has hit a dead end for frustrated homeowners in Boudeleers Point. And the impasse is shedding light on the lack of oversight for private road maintenance in Nova Scotia. Luke Ettinger explains.
Last winter in Boudeleers Point, a school bus went into the ditch right here. While no one was hurt, people were worried because of liability concerns. On private roads, who's responsible for maintenance and snow clearing? The province, municipalities, or landowners? Turns out the answer is just as muddy as the question.
The grantor is granted right away to the grantee, so the developer...
David Pilmer bought property in Boudeleers Point in 2015. He says the roads were in good shape until a few years later, when maintenance seemed to stop. Since then, it's been up to the neighbors, filling in potholes and clearing snow. So I looked into what governments are responsible for. There is no oversight for private roads in Nova Scotia. Instead, there are a patchwork of maintenance solutions. Residents can have homeowners associations that govern upkeep. In other cases, the Department of Public Works provides what some call political plowing, where private roads have been maintained by the province for years, despite a policy against it. There are also communities with informal arrangements for maintenance and snow clearing, with companies or individuals who've got the equipment the community needs. And I learned of payments ranging from cash to a bottle of booze.
There are a lot of them that work well. And so while there are some that do not and could benefit from some sort of regulatory oversight.
In Bootleers Point, residents are continuing to patch the potholes and contract snow clearing in winter. So they're wondering about liability of maintaining a road on land they don't own.
At this point, I'm ready to take on anything at this stage. I'm concerned we've been jumping through hoops trying to make something work that has significant liability issues.
Let's look at how it works in the HRM. The Halifax Regional Municipality no longer permits private roads for new subdivisions. The municipality is also preparing a report to address issues on private roads. Halifax Regional Council will also consider collecting a maintenance fee, but that depends if residents on private roads have a homeowners association and more than 2/3 of residents sign a petition in support of the fee. If approved, funds will be collected by the municipality and forwarded to the association. So, what should you do if you live on a private road or are looking to build one? Land says homeowners on private roads should inform their insurance company. He says residents should also reach out to their MLA or municipal representative when issues arise. As for this community, the province says maintenance rests with the road owner or residents. Luke Ettinger, CBC News, Bootleers Point.
The Dartmouth General Hospital has a brand new MRI machine, a first at the hospital.
3, 2, 1.
The head of radiology at the hospital says having an MRI in Dartmouth will mean people who are admitted and need a scan will no longer have to be transferred by ambulance to Halifax to get one.
Oh, it's huge, yeah. Certainly make the timeliness of diagnosis for patients who need an MRI way better. And also helping reduce the stress on the EHS and the transfers. So yeah, it'll lead to far better patient care, more timely patient care. It's really a wonderful step forward.
So we're going to do an additional 400 patients a month, 5,000 patients a year, with a current wait list of 15,000 patients. So significant impact. We're expecting to improve on those numbers. It's a new magnet, so we're hoping that we can exceed those expectations.
The Hospital Foundation contributed to $2 million to help make it happen. The province paid the construction and installation costs and will fund the staff to run the machine.
Police officers and community members came together over the weekend to honor 2 members who died from cancer. And as the CBC's Kyle Moore tells us, the Memorial Hockey Tournament continues to raise money in their names.
For the 7th straight year, the ball dropped on the annual Cops Against Cancer Hockey Tournament in memory of 2 fallen police officers. For many here, it's a cause close to their heart.
It helps with the healing process, you know, and keeps you motivated, keeps you moving forward, and you know, and supporting. She'd be the first one that would step out and do something like this for another cause, for somebody else in need, right?
Fabian Morgan's daughter Tara passed away at the age of 24 in 2012 from a brain tumor. She was only on the force a year when she was diagnosed. Morgan says the tournament brings back a lot of emotional memories.
I think about all my time I spent with Tara, you know. Grading days, you know, Christmases, all that important stuff, you know, and then you know that it's, you know, you don't have that time back, right? You know, so it's hard.
The tournament also pays tribute to Constable Mark Royal. He passed away in 2017. He died of brain cancer at the age of 36.
You'd never know he was sick. He still came to work. He battled through it, and he showed up every day. You wouldn't know that there was anything wrong with him.
Over the years, the tournament has raised tens of thousands of dollars in the two officers' names. This year, 10 teams participated, made up of police officers, family, and friends.
The police department, we're always changing, hiring new people. There's a lot of people that never had the opportunity to work with Tara and Mark. It's for a good cause. Cancer affects all of us, and I think as police officers, it's something we can do to give back.
Mark is remembered as someone who loved to joke around and a respected police officer. Fabian says his daughter always had a passion for policing.
She had great aspirations, and you know, there was no limit to what she thought she was going to be able to do in time, right? So, no, I think she was cut out for it.
Morgan hopes the tournament will continue to grow and that people will remember Tara and Mark. Kyle Moore, CBC News, Glace Bay.
A new environmental science course being piloted at 4 Nova Scotia high schools is expected to expand this fall.
It's called Naduga Limca 12, and it uses a two-eyed seeing approach, combining both Western and Mi'kmaq knowledge.
The goal is for students to connect with nature and each other. Have a look.
Later in the instructions, when it says to spray, you're going to be using this to spray the seeds and not each other, hopefully. I'm Jenny Carroll, and I'm a teacher at Millwood High School, and I am one of the pilot teachers for Nedigo Limp 12, which is a course being offered this year for the first time. Nedigo Limp 12 is an environmental science course taught from a two-eyed seeing perspective. So the Mi'kmaq word for that is Etowuptimunk, and it translates to the gift of multiple perspectives. So what we're really doing is we are developing a Western eye by doing Western science things, making observations, working with numbers and charts, but we're also looking at things from a Mi'kmaq or other Indigenous perspectives, which is a little more holistically and centering ourselves in relation to the land, the water, and all of the interconnectedness that is Wiskitkumu, or Mother Earth. We do some inside work and some outside work, so the land is the teacher, but we also want to prepare students if they're going to university for environmental science programs or other programs with some lab work on the inside. So we use our science lab quite a bit, our biology lab, but we go outside a lot too. And so that can go back to my house.
So today we are planting some vegetables for our garden that's going to be hopefully being built soon. And I love that it's a class activity. We decided as a group to do this as a whole class, not just individual groups, which I think is really good for community sense.
Everything that I've learned in this course I've applied like outside knowledge, and I've told my family about it and my friends about it, because it's not just like within the class. You go outside and you're talking with the community and you're a part of the community, and I think that's really important, and I think it needs to be implemented in more classes. We're so comfortable with the Western sciences and, you know, imperial measurements, and you have all this knowledge from years and years, but having knowledge from thousands and thousands of years that's now still in this classroom is so vitally important to take care of the environment and the earth.
I love how it's not really based on grades, and it's actually about learning what is helpful to you and what you should know about the world. And there's no pressure. Like, this class is no pressure at all. You learn, you have fun, you talk, you make friends. It's really nice.
Are you finding that the students are taking to this style of learning?
They love it. They love it, and I love it because it's relationship based, and we do a lot less writing and a lot more listening. And we're listening to each other and learning from each other. And really, we're not learning about Mi'kmaq culture, we're learning from Mi'kmaq culture. And that is really a new experience for a lot of us here. It's, I think, a really good part of treaty education. I think it's a really important part of reconciliation, and a really good opportunity to learn from one another.
Coming up, a Quebec Superior Court judge has granted a partial injunction against a pro-Palestinian encampment at the University of Quebec in Montreal.
It was a weekend of deadly storms in the U.S. Officials say 4 children are among 19 dead across 4 southern states.
And Ryan is up next with the full weather forecast. We'll see you in just a few minutes.
All right, back with your full weather forecast now, and this is by no means scientific, but I would say that more people seem to be aware about the fire-like or the fire-prone conditions that we're in the middle of right now, things being so dry.
Oh yeah, people are on edge a bit.
For sure. Everybody's tapped into the fire ban, and yeah, I think that there's still some restrictions in place in most of the province in yellow, which means we need to take care, and I think that we'll go back to green. But yeah, to your point, everybody's paying attention now, right? May not have been the case last year so much, but again, hard to believe it's been a year. Now, we will be watching that rain coming in, much needed as we said, but right now, still seeing a little bit of sunshine out there, especially this is a live shot at Burnt Coat Head. Beautiful shot there in Cobequid Bay. Yeah. Love that. We'll take the sun. Yeah, and you know what? When we get the rain, then it makes us allows us to enjoy the sun
more. You don't have to worry as much.
That's right, for sure. Carefree sunshine. Love that. 17 degrees, though the clouds are thickening up there, as you can see. Note the temps much cooler along the Atlantic coastline. 10 degrees in Halifax, 18 at Amherst. That's our hotspot. Again, nicely shielded from that onshore flow, which is on the increase, and we're going to continue to see those winds picking up, already sustained in the 10-20 range for most of us. Yarmouth picking up, last check, 26, gusting to 41. Halifax already gusting to 35, and we're going to see those winds cranking up slowly but surely through tonight and into tomorrow. A pretty breezy day on top of the wet weather that's going to be coming in. Clouds, as you can see, thickening up. We've got this warm front that's going to be pushing its way in through tonight with some showers, and then the front itself will be pushing through. We are looking at the possibility of some thunderstorms. Looks like a pretty, slight risk, but the chances are there. Area of high pressure you can see dominating, bringing some quieter weather, much needed quieter weather to the U.S. South after some obviously damaging days there, unfortunately, with the tornadoes that have been just relentless over the last few weeks. 15 in Vancouver. You can see temperatures across the Canadian prairies right now, generally in the mid-teens. As we look at the forecast tonight, shower chances will march as far east as Halifax and up towards the Kentville area by the time we get to tomorrow morning. Southeast winds 30 gusting 40 to 50 kilometers per hour, except for Cape Breton, where the skies will clear tonight. There is a very slight risk of some patchy frost through the overnight, as we will be seeing those temps dropping to around 3-4 degrees perhaps, then rising again through tomorrow morning, the wee morning hours of tomorrow. Let's time out the rain. You can see Tri-County area into the mix as we work our way through the early morning, and then this will all track in. And note these pockets of yellow, orange, and red. These are the heavier downpours that we could possibly see, and also some embedded thunderstorms in here. And this will all work throughout the day. By 5 p.m., really drying out across the western part of the province. It'll stay wetter longer for Cape Breton, but you folks not getting into the rain until the afternoon. So pretty quiet start to the day here with some shower and drizzle chances, and then watch that rain to arrive throughout the afternoon in the east. Lacy wet winds will gust to 80 tomorrow, generally gusting 50 to 60 with the strongest gusts along the coast. Similar story through central areas, gusting to 60 along parts of the coast, especially the North Shore, gusting generally to 50 everywhere else. The western parts of the province, again, some gusts to 60 here as well, generally gusting to 50. One more look, 5 to 10 millimeters across the north, 10 to 20 millimeters along the Atlantic coastline. But yeah, you can see all these yellows in here. These are going to be our 20 to 30 millimeter pockets, and we'll likely see quite a few of those as well. We are looking at temperatures on Wednesday. We'll be into the high teens, low 20s. Cooler here in green along the Atlantic coastline with that onshore flow. Wednesday, we will see some sunshine breaking through. It's going to be a very slow start to the day. There's the sun, and then some pop-up showers possible into the afternoon. Kind of a similar story Thursday and again on Friday. Just isolated shower chances. The weekend overall looks quiet. Maybe some eastern showers on Sunday, but that rain on Tuesday, Tom and Amy, will be soaking up all of that for sure.
Definitely.
Watch for that. Okay, thanks so much, Ryan.
Thank you.
Thanks, Ryan.
Well, up next, we'll hear from the RCMP's Assistant Commissioner about its planned apology for the use of street checks. That's our newsmaker.
Do stay with us. You're watching CBC Nova Scotia News.
Nova Scotia RCMP will apologize to the province's Black communities on September the 7th for the use of street checks, which disproportionately targeted members of the African Nova Scotian community. The Wortley report found members of that community were 6 times more likely to be the subject of a street check. RCMP Assistant Commissioner Dennis Daly also told the CBC's Blair Rhodes it has a new action plan to prevent this.
What took the RCMP so long?
For the apology to African Nova Scotians, I do recognize that the apology has been long overdue. Of course, I was not here in Nova Scotia for the previous team that was here and making that decision. But after I came back here, having served here now my 3rd time, it was extremely important to me, knowing the history of African Nova Scotians and people of African descent to the province. It was very important for me to issue this apology.
But do you have any idea why it wasn't issued before you came back to the province?
I really don't. I don't like to look backwards, even when we talk about the Sankofa bird of, African heritage, where you look back to learn, but you then go forward. So the important thing for me, and I hope the African Nova Scotian communities, is that we are prepared to apologize now. We are prepared with an action plan, because in our journey with the communities, we heard loud and clear about the need for an action plan, and we're prepared to move forward together.
Were you surprised by the numbers in Scott Wortman's report that African Nova Scotians were 6 times more likely to be stopped in a street check?
I was surprised and disappointed, and I felt some personal shame as well, because from the period of about 2011 to 2013, I was the operations officer down in Halifax, working with Halifax Regional Police. And so we were encouraging street checks, and we were tracking street checks. What we failed to do, and what we've learned now, what we failed to do is we failed to have good governance, good auditing purposes. I would suggest that it was a learning lesson in what potentially is systemic racism, in the sense that it was a policy and a protocol that we thought was good for public safety. But what we failed to do, we failed to have that governance over it, so that we did not unfairly, bring in people that we had no intention of bringing in. And so we've learned from that. And so it was surprising and disappointing at the same time, because we were not looking at the data, and we need to look at the data and learn from the data.
So you didn't get a breakdown back then that would have indicated that there was a disproportionate number of Black people being stopped?
No, and again, one of our failings back then was lack of auditing, lack of truly looking at the numbers. Police at that time, and to this day, don't track race as far as our interactions. However, coming out of Wortley and an internal project with the RCMP, we will be in the future, the near future, tracking race-based data. And that is in hopes of developing better policy, developing better training, and actually looking at the data to see who we're impacting, not only as, for instance, drivers, but who are victimized, who are suspects, that sort of thing. We can learn from the data.
What was the defense for using street checks as an investigative tool? What was the rationale for it?
Well, across policing, you'll hear that it's important for our police officers to get out in communities. At the time, we were identifying areas that we would call hotspots based on reported crime. So we wanted our police officers in the areas where crime was being reported. And so oftentimes you would hear the argument about the need, I'll give you a good example. For instance, it happened back in New Brunswick when I was in New Brunswick, but a police officer stopped a motorist, ostensibly for a street check. It turned out to be 2 Hells Angels, and later on in Halifax, they committed a very serious crime. Because of that street check that was done in New Brunswick, they were able to link them back to the Halifax area. So quite often you will hear from police that it's an intel gathering. It's important because we need to see who's out and about. Again, where we need to be very careful when we roll out a policy or a protocol is that we understand who this may be implicating and take steps to mitigate as much as possible, who we're impacting. The communities have told us that they want policing. This is not an anti-policing. They want policing. They just want good, fair, equal treatment of policing.
What broad strokes do you expect will be in the plan?
What the communities have told us at each of the interactions are, the broad strokes are like education for RCMP employees. And to that end, we have launched the African Canadian Experience course. We call it the ACE course. It was developed by RCMP employees here in Nova Scotia. The Department of Justice has partnered with us to also not only RCMP employees to train and educate RCMP employees, but other police departments. We've had police chiefs from across the province on it. We've had Department of Justice employees from the Crown, from corrections, all who are interacting with African Nova Scotians within the system. So that is the history of African Nova Scotians, whether you look at the education system, the healthcare system, and of course policing and the criminal justice system. So that's just one race-based data collection. As I mentioned, at some point we'll be launching race-based data. We hope to pilot it here in Halifax.
Okay, Commissioner, thank you very much.
Thank you, Blair.
Coming up, a rally was held today outside a Jewish girls' school in Toronto after shots were fired at the building on the weekend.
Welcome back. The University of Toronto took legal action today against pro-Palestinian protesters. It's seeking an injunction to clear demonstrators from its downtown campus. The university issued a trespass notice Friday, ordering them to leave by this morning. But as of this hour, the encampment remains.
Meanwhile, in Montreal, a judge has made a decision about a protest at the Université de Québec à Montréal. The CBC's Kwabena Oduro has the details.
In the decision by the judge, the partial injunction request says that the protesters need to stop blocking doors, windows, and let UQAM's fire department have access into the buildings. The camp needs to be 2 meters away from the accesses so people can access the buildings in and out freely. I want to show you what the encampment looks like right now. This is what it looks like at all the entrances around this part of the UQAM campus. People are having trouble getting in and out of the buildings. And this encampment started really as a protest to the injunction request filed by McGill against the McGill encampment. At that time, people at this encampment were saying that they would invite people from the McGill encampment to be here if the other encampment got dismantled. So people here at this encampment are calling for more measures than the other encampments. They want all universities in Quebec to cut ties with Israel. They want the province to abolish that bureau that they have in Tel Aviv as well. UQAM says that they don't have any ties with Israel, no firearms, no frameworks with Israel, and they say that they won't be reacting to the judgment just yet. They want to study it and see how it goes. And protesters here say that they're in it for the long haul. It's in solidarity with all the encampments across the country and all the other encampments that have still stayed standing up until this time across the world, and they say that they won't leave until their demands are met. And police presence is here at all the entrances at the UQAM campus. Police say that they are not going to step in because they don't have authority to. They said that campus security could give tickets, but they are not allowed to do anything because that is not the injunction request, and they are just here to monitor the situation and make sure that everything remains safe and peaceful. Kwabena Oduro, CBC News, Montreal.
University presidents are defending their approach to combating anti-Semitism on campus since the October 7th Hamas attack on Israel. Several of them appeared before a parliamentary committee studying anti-Jewish hatred and Islamophobia. This as police investigate gunfire that damaged a private Jewish school for girls in Toronto. The CBC's Rafi Boudjikanian has more.
Angry and shocked, angry that we have to explain to our girls why this is happening.
An unusual Monday morning at this Toronto elementary school for Jewish girls, where the weekend was unusual too. Police investigating after they say suspects fired multiple shots. Today, a revelation: Toronto police are not investigating alone.
The RCMP obviously have responsibility from a national security context, and they're very much engaged with the Toronto Police Service. And I hope very much that the community in Toronto understands that we're bringing every law enforcement tool to bear to hold those responsible for this hateful and violent crime to account.
MPs were also focused on anti-Semitism in higher education on Monday.
I cannot believe that in my lifetime we were having university presidents testifying before the parliamentary committee about anti-Semitism on campus.
University presidents defending their approach on fighting anti-Jewish hatred.
Do you acknowledge anti-Semitism is a significant problem on your campus?
Yes.
President Gertler?
Yes. Their answers sometimes left MPs wanting, even as the University of Toronto has filed an injunction to try and shut down the pro-Palestinian encampment on its grounds this morning.
That's a symbol that glorifies terrorism by Hamas. That sits at the front of the encampment. Now, don't you think that the university's code of conduct would suggest that something like that is against the code of conduct?
We have asked the student organizers of the encampment to remove signage and language which is offensive.
The University of Toronto also said it's referred 38 incidents to Toronto police. It believes about a half dozen of those could qualify as hate speech or hateful acts. The MP's goal is to write a report on anti-Semitism. They will tackle Islamophobia on campus as well. Rafi Boudjikanian, CBC News, Ottawa.
Israel says it will investigate its military airstrike in Rafah overnight. The Hamas-run health ministry said the attack killed 45 Palestinians who were sheltering in the area. The attack came hours after Hamas launched a barrage of rockets at Tel Aviv for the first time in months. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu described the deaths as a tragic mistake. Still, the airstrike has sparked global outrage. It happened less than 3 days after the UN World Court ordered Israel abandon its offensive in Rafah. Journalist Sarah Coates has more.
The international reaction is continuing to pour in the wake of Sunday night's attack on an area in Rafah where many Palestinian refugees were sheltering. Now, residents in that area are describing terror, while paramedics have told AFP that people were simply ripped to pieces. We now have reaction from the Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu. He says that this is a tragic error, while the IDF spokesperson has come out to say that the military did not expect the strike to harm civilians, saying that before the attack, many steps were taken to reduce the chances of harm to uninvolved people, including a visual aerial inspection, the use of precision weaponry and intelligence information, adding that the IDF's top-tier fact-finding mechanism will investigate. We've heard from the UN Refugee Agency, UNRWA, for Palestinian refugees, saying that a number of its employees remain missing, saying that nowhere in Gaza is safe, no person in Gaza is safe, describing the area as hell.
What we have seen in the immediate hours is that Israel continues the military action that has been asked to stop. Also, Hamas is launching rockets against Israel, so both sides don't respect the ruling of the world.
Now, this comes amid reports that these hostage and ceasefire negotiations may in fact begin once again this coming week, although the Israeli Prime Minister is vowing to push on with this war. He's also slamming claims that he is blocking these talks, saying that this is lies, adding instead of putting pressure on Hamas leader Yahya Sinwar, it's put on the Israeli government. Certainly a lot of hope here on the ground for the families of these more than 120 Israeli hostages that do remain in the Gaza Strip. They have been there now for more than 230 days. While there's a lot of hope that these talks may once again resume, there's really not a lot of optimism. In Tel Aviv, Sarah Coates reporting for CBC News.
At least 20 people, including 4 children, are dead after a series of powerful storms this weekend in the United States.
Oh my God.
Texas, Oklahoma, Arkansas, and Kentucky were hit. The storms occurred just north of where an early season heat wave is setting records. The governor of Kentucky is the latest governor to declare a state of emergency. The storms destroyed homes and businesses, and some communities have been left without power. Forecasters are warning that the severe weather could shift to the East Coast. All right, we had summer this weekend.
Yeah.
Don't you think?
But it was nice.
Yeah.
We had lots of sun, and the rain is coming, so we don't have to feel guilty about enjoying the sun.
That's right. That's what we want. Systems come, systems go. We get a little bit of sun, we get the rain that we need, and we do need the rain, as we've been mentioning throughout the show. And not just for the wildfire concern, but I know the farmers are really looking for the rain as well, especially through the valley, where that's been one of the drier spots over the last few weeks. Have a look at our viewer picture of the day. This one zooming in on Sydney. Been a while since we've been to Sydney, and this on the eastern point of the Sydney Harbour. And
that's very nice.
That's a gorgeous picture,
isn't it?
Yeah.
Sandy Johnson out there yesterday with his daughter, and
The water looks a bit cold, though, doesn't it?
It does look a little chilly, doesn't it?
For sure. Yeah, it's definitely a little cool there. I think water temperatures around still 8 degrees. So yeah, bit cool. 14 in Sydney tomorrow, 14 in Port Hawkesbury as well. Looking at temperatures anywhere from 15 to 18 across the mainland. Those winds are going to be notably gusty for tomorrow. One of the stronger winds we've seen in a few weeks. So that plus the rain, we'll be looking for that. And then we're looking at temperatures kind of widespread, high teens, low 20s on Wednesday. Warmest spots likely along that Northumberland shore, where we're going to flirt with the mid-20s. And yeah, let's time it out. So this system moving in widespread, 10, 20, maybe 30 millimeters for southern areas, 5 to 10 millimeters for northern areas. So not quite enough, especially for you folks in the valley, but we'll hope for some isolated shower chances to top things up there in the next few days.
Fingers crossed. Okay, thanks, Ryan. Well, there was an early sign of spring in Bulgaria last week, about a month early. Take a look at this. These first roses of the season in Bulgaria are having their petals ripped off to be made into rose oil.
But they've come about a month earlier than usual due to climate change that has ushered in warmer and more humid springs. Bulgaria is one of the top rose oil producers in the world, with the first evidence of harvest there dating back about 25 centuries.
1,000 petals equals 1 gram of oil, and it's not just for cosmetics. There's also rose tea, rose jam, and rose brandy.
And that's how they make the rose oil. That's it for us tonight. Thanks so much for watching. We'll see you next time.
Good night.
Good night.